Thank you. So I'm Judith Robinson from Sound and Music. I'm the head of education there, and I know that Susanna, our chief executive, is coming
we
later.
hope she will.
I know she's coming. She's been practicing. So you'll hear from Susanna. You'll hear from Susanna later. And I've got great pleasure in working with Alex.
So I'm Alex. I'm the Learning and Participation Officer at Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival, and Judith came to me last year with this project called Music for Young Players, and I'm going to just do this. It was a complex partnership project because there's quite a lot of people involved. With the Sound of Music, it was great for their talent development side of things, and they helped put the money together for the project, working with 3 local composers in Huddersfield and around West Yorkshire. And HCMF was a platform for those composers to work with 6 primary schools to deliver a composition project and them to perform in the town hall. The British Music Collection, which holds thousands of scores at the University archives, was where we got the scores from. And Duncan, who you met already, our freelance extraordinaire, had the artistic vision, energy, and mentoring skills to support composers. So we're going to show you a video because that's more exciting. So this was made by our friend Luke.
Every year, Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival hosts a whole range of concerts and events across the town over 10 days in November. This year, we worked with 3 composers from Sound of Music to introduce children to contemporary music for the first time. Inspired by the scores from the British Music Collection, it's been a wonderful opportunity for them to explore sounds and compose music together in new ways.
Another aspect of the project was that the professional composers who worked on the project also had the opportunity for professional development. So although they're professional composers, they wanted to develop their skills and their practice as educators. So going into schools and being composers and sharing their creative and composing skills with those children.
Today is the culmination of a project based on a series of pieces written in the 1960s and 70s called Music for Young Players. And the idea of these pieces was to provide a repertoire for young people to engage in composition and creative music in schools.
There's a large body of scores that have been sort of holed up in boxes for 20, 30 years. And now they've moved into Heritage Key. They are unpacking those boxes and trying to make those works more available. So we've had the opportunity to have a rummage around in all of their scores and found some fantastic works, really great pieces.
We've been working with 3 composers in 6 Kirklees primary schools to create new pieces, but also to recreate some of these pieces from the 60s and 70s.
I think they've responded really well, and some of the ideas that have come from the kids have been really brilliant. For example, we've got quite a lot of percussion in it, but we've also brought in some melodic material, but that kind of sits nicely as a contrasting sound to the percussion.
I like this triangle sound, and when we were spinning the coins on the drums.
One of the really positive aspects of the project for me was getting to share it with the other composers that were involved. So we all came up with really interesting ways of engaging the kids, and being able to discuss them and share them right from the beginning of the project and all the way along meant that I learned a lot.
One of the other things that's really interesting about this project is how it really focuses on the act of composition, making composing a really integral part of music.
The kids here have been fantastic, and actually seeing the reaction and the engagement from a bunch of 9 and 10-year-olds who've never come across experimental music before and had just got it, actually. They have taught me loads.
I think it's super special to work with such a large number of musicians that maybe didn't know they were musicians before they started this project.
It makes me feel very calm because it makes me feel like I'm in like my own place and I can just relax. Music doesn't always have to be from an instrument. It also can come from like sound effects from brushes, coins, and by your hands.
Playing at the town hall is a big deal, you know, for a lot of these kids. This will be the first time that they've ever performed a piece of music.
As composers, it's rare that we get the opportunity to go in and work directly with young people in schools. It felt like we could really explore our own ideas and develop our own ways that we have of working in an educational context. And it meant that we really had a sense of freedom in being able to really give the kids the freedom to actually experiment and play with the ideas, even if it just plants a little seed in their minds about contemporary music that maybe grows into something as they get older. That would be a really nice thing to think that would come out of the project.
Playing music and talking about music and sound is really inspiring. It helps us pay attention to things.
It's always interesting to see young people engaged with exploring sound in interesting and dynamic ways. So not necessarily assuming that the music they're making is based on the music they already know. So it's been a real sound exploration project.
Great, so I hope you enjoyed that. It's really lovely to see it, and it's almost a year ago actually, but the memories are really fresh. So we wanted to spend some time talking about what we learned from this project, how it fits into the context of music education nationally, and sort of the role that we can play in bringing contemporary and new music to young audiences especially. I should also say that we were hoping that Eleanor Cully, who was the one of the composers who spoke on the video, she's actually got halfway here. She got as far as Chesterfield, and the trains have been so bad she's had to go home. So she was absolutely gutted and very upset not to be here today. So we're going to try and say what she was going to say. It won't be as good as were Eleanor with us, but she's with us in spirit. We learnt lots from doing this project. It was great to work together as a number of organisations and practitioners. We felt that although the scores are quite old now, they're actually really, really relevant still. They still had a place in today's classrooms. We found that they did assume a certain level of musical experience that sadly you can't assume or take for granted these days in schools. But even the sort of battle axe teacher that Julian encountered in one of his teachers, even she grudgingly sort of said, "Oh, yes, I can see how graphic scores could be useful for learning to read proper music." So they do have a relevance, and of course, the fact that they're graphic and they're accessible and the concepts were sort of easy to grasp, so that all worked very well. One of the most lovely things was. Obviously, all the children and all the composers were working away in their respective schools, and they all came together in the town hall for the afternoon to have a sort of run through. And the attention that the children gave to each other's pieces as they, for the first times, heard and witnessed what each group had worked on was absolutely amazing. And and it contrasted quite a lot with the evening performance when there were parents and siblings who didn't have that sort of ownership and engagement with the material. But in the afternoon rehearsals, they were fascinated to see what each group had done, and obviously had a great understanding of the sort of processes and the notations that each group had used. So that was really exciting, actually. On a more practical level, it's quite interesting that we were working with these scores. They were published by Universal Edition. They were meant to be for teachers to use in schools, and Universal Edition didn't actually really know that they had them in their archive, in their collection, when we approached them about performance rights and things. And they're not really open to sort of making them more accessible, more widely available. So that was quite a surprise and a disappointment. But that was a sort of a downside. It's something I'd like to be able to do. If I had more time and energy, I would sort of pursue that one and see if they could have downloadable PDFs on their website and things. Watch this space. One of the composers I know has already gone on. He works for Hull Music Service. He's based in York, but he travels over to Hull a few days a week. I know that he's shared the scores already with some primary school teachers there, and that's actually linked with some other work we do in Hull. On our project Minute of Listening, and actually I think that's being presented on Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know whether he'll talk about, they won't mention Tom's work with these schools, but it's all part of a bigger whole. I think we did find that the composers told us how valuable it was, and I was chatting to Bobby earlier as well, how valuable it is for composers who work in educational contexts to network and to meet with each other and to share ideas and problems and jointly problem solve and all of those things. I know they really appreciated having Duncan. Duncan sort of was at the end of the phone or on Skype sort of advising people. He made a lot of visits to the schools and kind of either jointly delivered or observed sessions and gave people feedback. And I know that that's an enormous learning experience for for composers who are very, very accomplished but still have experience to gain in order to become even better at what they do. So we knew, and as well as that, these composers actually became part of Sound and Music's artist development programme called New Voices. So they were also able to network with a wider group of emerging composers through that process as well, which is kind of outside the nuts and bolts of this project. We did also learn that Alex, being the person on the ground with the festival looming, had 6 schools, 6 sessions, 3 composers. That's a lot to juggle. That's something we learned. So thank you, Alex. And I suppose it's an issue as well. At Sound and Music, we're a national organisation. How do we can't physically be everywhere in the country at the same time, and how do we do that? And actually, partnership is the key. And thank you, Alex. Yes, so we're going on to what Eleanor wanted to say about the sort of educational context, and it's something I feel quite strongly about as well. Composition and composing, and in the broader sense of the word, composing and creating music it's not prioritised in schools, and it's just something that teachers are not happy doing. They don't feel confident, they haven't got the skills. A lot of schools don't have the resources, and I think we're thinking particularly about primary schools in this case, and yet being creative is something that comes naturally to children, whether it's being creative with the sounds they're making or the images that they're making or whatever. So how do we sort of join that up? And this is what children want to do, and yet there's an issue in how they're supported in that. And we'll be coming back to that later.
Yeah. So this is a bit of the national curriculum for primary school music. To perform, listen to, review and evaluate music across a range of historical periods, genres, styles and traditions. And learn to sing and to use their voices. And I put to create and compose music on their own with others, because that's something that's kind of not done as much. Performing, listening, evaluating and understanding and exploring music is definitely done more in primary school music rather than creating and composing. You have, got wider ops doing 30 kids doing trumpets or recorders learning how to play pieces of music, but creating and composing is something that's quite terrifying to primary school teachers and music coordinators. And these scores, provide a curiosity, interpretation and self-expression, accessibility to children in the class with no prior experience, and offer entry points to notation by asking questions, how do I interpret this? An experimental approach. The music is discovered first by doing and creating content and responding to each other.
Okay, so to finish, I might need the notes for this bit, but to finish what Eleanor wanted to say, I think around audiences and this project, I think it's a reflection again of how the children behaved in the rehearsal compared with how the audience behaved in the evening. They were a great audience, they were noisy, they were enthusiastic, they appreciated especially their own children's efforts, but that just amazing engagement when they heard each other's pieces and knew kind of there was a sort of feeling of knowing what the process was. I think that's what has made Eleanor say that children are the best audience for others' music. So in this context, they all have been through the same thing, and that's kind of what made that moment special. Okay. So on to there.
So just we'll whiz through this because we've got 5 minutes. So strategies to maintain relationships with young people to encourage them to do music opportunities. So early intervention, I think, is one that, key. Going in at a primary school age is a really good starting point. And I think one of the issues then, once the project ending, is how to keep that relationship with the schools. These are just a few examples that we do at HCMF. So local cultural education partnerships, the LSEPs, is a big, a group of maybe 8 organisations based in Huddersfield: arts, theatre, dance, music, etc. That all come together, network, and we share our contacts, we share our schools' contacts, we work together, we do partnerships. A lot of the workshops we do during the festival are in partnership with other arts organisations. So that's one of the big things to do when there isn't a lot of money, is to work with other local organisations. The local music hub, Musica. Now, a lot of music hubs want to teach kids how to play their instruments, and they want to do Pirates of the Caribbean, Jurassic Park in the youth orchestra. So this is a hard sell, to kind of get them go listen to contemporary music and go, how can we get the kids engaged in experimental music? This year we are doing a concert with the local music hub, Musica, working with their guitar ensembles and the local orchestra, and we've commissioned 2 pieces, one by Eleanor Cully and one by Callum Dewar, and it's the first time that we're working together, for many years, and we're getting 300 children on stage playing contemporary music. So it was a bit of a push, but we're getting there. School hubs, the LEPs, the Learning Education Partnerships, they're really hard to get into. I kind of bolstered my way to get to meet with them, and that's been really helpful because I talked about the festival and what we do, and through that I recruited a couple of schools for our other projects, including the local special needs school, and it's just really hard to get to schools via email and phone. Everyone's really busy and music isn't a priority, so it's a long process. The schools that we've been working with for this music for young players, we offered them free ticket opportunities for this year's festival, and that's really exciting. So Fieldhead Academy, one of our favourite schools, are coming from that project, and they're 10 miles out of Huddersfield, so that's really exciting. Do you want to, should I just say that, or should I say that really quickly?
Yeah. Okay. So that's. I think Alex's examples are fantastic, and I'm sure that actually Nancy would echo a lot of the ones about working in partnership, and we saw that from the BCMG and also from Bobby's projects earlier. They're the ones I remember. But on a national level, what about the children who live in rural Norfolk, or what about the children who live in Worcestershire? What's happening for them? Your work is fantastic, BCMG's work is fantastic. We need a change in policy and we need to be better networked so that we can share this good practice where it happens and encourage more to do it. I think that's my main message really. And you want to end on a really positive note.
So this is a feedback from Richard Ellen, our school teacher, and I'm going to read it out because it's just amazing. So the things we can take from the whole process, aside from the pure musical aspect, that to some of the children, opportunities like last night can be so much more than that. Things such as the child telling me on the short 20-minute coach journey from Birstall to Huddersfield that this concert's a real long way from home. Or another who was wandering around what to you and me is just a town hall, literally open mouth saying, "This is the most amazing building I've ever been in." On stage last night, playing in front of a few hundred people, you had 2 children that only 8 to 10 months ago struggled to walk into a small school hall for assembly without becoming anxious and tearful. And to look across mid-concert and see all 21 children in absolute silence staring at the stage, demonstrating enough respect and empathy to enjoy the performance of other schools and children is also a noteworthy event. And all your hard work provided another opportunity to show some young eyes that the world is a lot bigger and has a lot more opportunities than we can realise. And as one of our young ladies said to me today, I'll remember that concert when I'm really old, like even when I'm 20 or 25. That's it.
Now, some of you who are not from the UK or are young don't know that there was a national curriculum written and proposed just before I moved to this country from Holland in the early 90s that involved graphic scores, improvisation, world music. It was just sort of the music education we all dreamed of. And the main resistance came from music teachers who said, "I can't teach composition, I don't know what it is." And so here we are, this many years later, fighting the same battle and having enormous successes, and it's just not quite coming across. So the problem is there, but the answers are already there too, which is quite interesting. One remark that you guys made that resonated very strongly, because people might just say, well, what do you mean by that? That the performance will best to be listened to by other children. One of the things I was taught as a composer is that you're always making music for anybody. That is to say, in contemporary music, anybody's going to bother listening to it. And we're never thinking of for whom writing music, actually. And I think the for whom question, and a lot of people are addressing the why question, which I also wasn't taught, the for whom question is quite urgent. And the more we consider who it's for, the more we can go to them and work with them. So I thought that was really courageous of you to say that, and that resonates with me. Who would like to ask them a question? Yes.
Well, thank you very much for this very, very interesting presentation. Just a very practical question about these scores at Universal Edition. Where can you find them? How do you ask for them?
There are some archived copies in the British Music Collection, but you have to go to Huddersfield University to look at them, but you can. And apart from that, you have to approach Universal Edition, who I think would do a special print.
Right.
And
So
I don't know the
what's
cost.
the name of the collection?
It's called Music for Young Players.
And so several composers.
Yes, it's quite a few composers. Includes John Painter, who was also instrumental in
That national
the
curriculum I
national
just
curriculum.
referred to.
Howard Skenton, Hugh Shrapnel, David Bedford.
It's quite a collection. It's actually
There is also on the Sound of Music website, I don't know if it's on yours or not, but certainly on the Sound of Music website, there's a link to a Google exhibition which Duncan made about the scores. So you can see we can't reproduce the scores in their entirety on our website, obviously, but there are snippets that give you clues as to what they might look like.
I was wondering about the facility of maybe making the score information available to other partners, or whether those are going to be copyrighted in the normal way. The reason I'm mentioning is that we also having, as part of the interfaces, we have the Young Performers Repertoire action. We're commissioning 8 composers and also collecting works that we can disseminate to schools around Europe, and that would be really helpful to know.
My ambition was to talk to Universal Edition and find a means of being able to do exactly that. Because at the moment, when we started this project, Universal Edition didn't even know that they had copyrighted them, and they weren't on their website. You typed David Bedford into their website, and that balloon music didn't come up. They've now realised that they do own them, and that they will collect money when you want to perform the scores. But they're not at a stage where they're sort of really communicating with the public about them and enabling the public to make use of them.
Didn't you negotiate with them, Duncan?
See, we tried to.
We tried.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's as far as we got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we're getting also from the teachers is that they would like to have a centralized resource where they can actually work with, as you mentioned, all the rural schools. One of the commission universal, and for example, we're doing the commissions in the Creative Commons license, so everybody can download it for free. And we found out that that's probably one of the ways to do it, but we also found that there's a genuine need for all schools to have access and sharing.
I don't think Universal Edition
Yeah, I
has,
don't think that's
that.
I think that part of the project was to create new schools, wasn't it? I think some years ago we did a little project, a very much smaller scale project, inspired by the music for young players. And I was just sort of thinking about the whole thing about the new pieces that have come out of this, and you know the whole sharing idea. But a lot when we did it, I remember that the pieces that we created were very particular to that group of children, and in a way that's sort of what sort of stopped them having. They had huge value for the project and for those children, but they weren't as shareable as maybe I hoped and anticipated. And I think, but that's you know in a way it's good.
Yes.
But it's different. It's a different outcome from what I intended, because it was very much the children really owned those pieces.
Yes.
But whether they're shareable in the bigger sense, and if you feel the same sort of tension.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure whether you meant the Universal Edition schools or the children's schools, because I mean the children's schools are a product of a process, and the process is just as important to the children, if not more so. And so you know one of the I'm not sure if we saw it in the video, but one of the pieces was called Cat City Balloon, and it was actually a PowerPoint of different, and it was about what sound you play when you see what image. So it was a modern graphic score, really, wasn't it? But whether that would have meaning for another group of children who hadn't been through the process of deciding what their symbols would be and what sound went with what symbol, I guess you'd have to have some teachers' instructions along with them.
Whether you can create pieces that just stand alone and transferable from one context to another, and whether you'd want to do that or not.
That's a good question. John, did you want to ask?
Oh yeah, I was quite inspired by some of these pieces. It also throws up the question of what is new music as well, because it can be just going back and finding things that are no longer available, or can be another source of inspiration from possibly the past. So that's really fascinating. And also working with Duncan recently on some music for DIY electronics. Some of these pieces have been inspiration for a new set of pieces. Some of the composers as well. Howard Skempen has written new work for a slightly different medium possibly, but nevertheless drawing on some of that tradition, from those pieces from the past. So I'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow and show some of these new schools, which in many ways kind of build on this. If you find you've got some kind of brick wall with a publisher, once we've heard it, once those children have experienced it, we can take that forward, all of us, in that sense. We are free to create the music informed by this work.
Just to realise that this work that we're doing, there's a whole kind of, there's a backstory to it, and it's all this work that's done by John Painter, and we don't want to keep reinventing this in each generation. We've got to kind of, I'm surprised that so many people don't know about these, who are working in music education, don't know about these schools, don't know about kind of new music's influence on the curriculum, and I feel like we need to get back in there with new music's influence on the school curriculum.
Oof, on that difficult note. Okay, one final question and then we'll move on.
The question, what is new music, is actually quite important to that. For me, when you showed how the kids develop their music, I came to realize actually a composer is kind of swapping positions because they become teachers for their musicians. They spell out their vision, how they want to have it performed. So maybe that's why it's so hard for teachers to swap these places and suddenly leave their stage when they usually tell how it's done to the kids and let them tell how they want their piece to be done. Maybe that is kind of this step that is so hard to take.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's worked really well with having composers in the school rather than working with music teachers, specifically because they feel confident to relinquish that creativity to the children and like inspire them, and then they in return inspire us. And it's trying to get, so some of the teachers, probably 50% of the teachers were just like, this is amazing, this is incredible, I'm going to continue doing. We had this thing called sound snakes, and which the kids came up with, and songs in paper bags, and there's like lots of different ideas, but but the other half of the teachers was still quite apprehensive, and it is just trying to kind of slowly ease into to those teachers to say, like, this is about the children being creative and connecting with each other, because at the end of the 6 weeks, the bonds between the children was actually pretty special. So yeah,
maybe it's a question then of looking at the curriculum of the music educators.
Yeah. We know that, I'm afraid. I'm going to leave it there. I'm sorry, Mocha, but we do need to move on. So, and you put it back on a positive note, so that was a good one. Thank you both very much.